It is the fantasy football semifinals, and we're here to help. We're going to go game by game, breaking it all down. We'll preview it all from a regular NFL standpoint, looking at what's been a busy day in Major League Baseball and a bit of getting into busy offseason territory with a few predictions for that as well. And we got to talk some wrestling on a Friday. It's Couch Potato Diary, and it's live, I hope, and it's now. Welcome, everyone, to Couch Potato Diary. Happy Friday. My name is Peter Klein. Thank you very much for hanging out today. As always, we are presented by Sea of Dead. Head over to seaofdead403.ca for all that great Calgary swag. We got the Hanging in the Dome, Chillin' with Jerome shirts right now. Perfect Christmas gift for the Flames fan in your life. A lot more to celebrate about the past than the future, or the present anyway, for the Flames at this present moment. Also, Swift Energy. Head over to swiftenergy.gg. Use that code PKPrimetime for 25% off. We've been having some technical issues with the live stream the last couple of days. So wherever you are watching this today, if you could just let me know if and probably when things get wonky, just to kind of help me out a little bit, that would be greatly appreciated. I'm going to try to ignore it as much as I can, but if it gets too unbearable at points, then we will just move to the video game stuff, and I'll record all these things later and it'll be fine. But either way, I appreciate you guys hanging out for this one today. Toxic in the chat over on Twitch. Blue Jays killer Brandon Lowe finally out of the division. Yeah, that... It sounded like that was going to be the case. The Pirates wasn't exactly the destination I had in mind. We'll talk about the baseball stuff in a little bit, but a couple of moves they make today, I'm not a big prospects guy, so I don't know who the players are that Baltimore is sending their way. Generally, the rule of thumb was don't trade with the Rays because they know what they're doing, but I don't know if that's the case anymore. But we'll talk about that in a bit, but it is nice that Brandon Lowe isn't going to be the guy that we have to deal with all that often now. And on the Flames front, most Flames fans are depressed. That has generally been my takeaway from talking with Flames fans over the last little while as well. Not the most optimistic bunch at this time, but hey, another win against the Kraken. Look at them go now. The Calgary Flames can't stop, won't stop, apparently now in the NHL. All right, so far so good. We're just going to roll with the stream here and hope that it sticks and everything is fine. So let's get into it. It is a big time in the fantasy football world. It is semifinal weekend. We already had a wild game on Thursday. So if you're either feeling good coming out of that one or feeling like you need some help, we're here for you. Let's break down each game of the fantasy football week as we head toward the championship, hopefully. All right, we're going to go game by game, breaking it all down. And of course, if you have any specific questions, I like to think that I can cover a lot of ground, but I don't know what your team's doing. So let me know in the chats, or if you're watching after the fact, hit me up in the comments, or on social media. I am at Primetime Klein, and we can discuss all things fantasy football there. Let's get into it. On Saturday, coming off of, again, a crazy game on Thursday between the Rams and the Seahawks. We are now getting into the Saturday slate, and we'll begin with Philadelphia taking on the Washington Commanders. Washington obviously dealing with some injury issues and all of that. The Eagles just dealing with being an inconsistent football team at this particular time. Let's take a look at a few of the stats to kind of figure out where we want to get to. For the Eagles, while the offense has been struggling, the defense has still been the defense, right? They have allowed the 8th fewest points to quarterbacks this season, the 7th fewest points allowed to wide receivers, and the 3rd fewest allowed to tight ends. With Marcus Mariota as the quarterback this week for Washington, I don't know how much you can trust with Rodriguez. We kind of talked about him. We weren't able to play it. We weren't able to stream it anyway, but it's up right now. The waiver wire rebound. I just feel like that kind of volume is going to be tough to ignore. So I think Rodriguez is still probably someone we're going to have to play. Again, if you have a specific question about that, let me know in the chat, and we can certainly kind of dig through that one together, or in the comments again after the fact. I would be starting him. Everything else is very much case by case basis. Guys like McLaurin and all of that to kind of see where they're all sitting. But this would probably be a week where I feel like we are avoiding our Washington Commanders. On the Philadelphia side, when they have the football, again, it has been a difficult offense to trust this season, but this is a difficult matchup to stay away from. Washington last season was one of the surprises of the football world with what they were able to do on the defensive side of the ball. This year, they're surprising nobody. They've allowed the sixth most points to quarterback, ninth most to wide receivers, sixth most to running backs, and fourth most to tight ends. And because of this, I'm not usually a hot take guy. In part because I don't really know what accounts as a hot take and what doesn't. But I would assume this one maybe gets into that category. My start of the week at quarterback is Jalen Hurts. I think this is a great matchup. I feel like they have an opportunity here to really make a bit of a statement. And we've said that about Philadelphia before. I understand that. And it has been quite a bit ugly this year. But this is just, it's such a great matchup for them on Saturday afternoon. So I feel like we're starting our Eagles this week, right? We're starting Jalen Hurts. We're starting Saquon Barkley. We're starting Brown and Smith. And we're starting Goddard out at tight end. And Eagles defense is a play as well. This is a group we're rolling with. This is a group we are feeling very, very comfortable about at this particular time. Up next on Saturday, a massive game in the NFC North with the Green Bay Packers taking on the Chicago Bears. Green Bay, their defense this year has been solid. It is obviously shorthanded now with Micah Parsons going down with the injury and just being a bit of a banged up unit, but still a pretty good defense to trot out there. That being said, Caleb Williams is starting to play better, and he is starting to kind of get a grasp of this offense. So I think you can feel comfortable in playing him this week. Swift, there's some injury issues there. Monangai may have a pretty good volume load, but again, Green Bay, 8th fewest points allowed to running backs. It's a very weird thing to say, but I kind of feel like Caleb Williams is the only one that you feel great about starting from a team. And it's strange to say that about a quarterback, that you don't trust any of the weapons, but you think Caleb will have a pretty good game. But I do think that. And with injuries, Luther Burden and Roma Dunze, not necessarily available for this one, so DJ Moore could have a pretty good volume day, so he is probably someone that you'd feel all right trusting as well. When Green Bay has the football, the Bears defense has, I feel like they are better in theory than they are on paper, but they have given up 9th most points to quarterbacks, and with that, the 6th most points to wide receivers. Obviously, the injury to Christian Watson kind of muddies the waters a little bit, but we can trust Jordan Love in this matchup. Watch for the Josh Jacobs situation. He played banged up last week and did very well with it. But it's another week, and it's a shorter week now, going up against this Bears defense. What is he going to do? If he is active, you are playing him. And if he's not active, you're playing Emmanuel Wilson. And hopefully, if you're the Josh Jacobs owner, it's a nice, easy 1-to-1. And you can just kind of roll with it that way. I think you can feel very comfortable about starting those guys. Where it gets uncomfy is in the wide receiver room. And Christian Watson coming in, I think really did kind of solidify things for this unit. But with him out, there isn't really that number one guy there in Green Bay. It is very difficult to trust, and it is very difficult for me to put this out there when you have a spot in the final on the line. I kind of think you can trust Matthew Golden. I feel like he is one of those guys that it was a bit of a shaky start, but the numbers won't show it, but I do think when you watch him play, he is more comfortable out there on the field now. And he is a little bit more up to speed with what is needed at the NFL level. And you hear it all the time. At this point in the year, these ain't rookies anymore. So I kind of feel like you can trust Matthew Golden. This might be a situation where if you faced, say, Puka Nacua on Thursday or Jackson Smith and Jigba, and you kind of just need that big boom play, I feel like Matthew Golden might be that big boom that you need to look for coming up on Saturday evening. So I feel like you can roll with him as well. But again, let me know what situation you are in, and we can kind of figure it out that way. Let's go forward now as the Buffalo Bills take on the Cleveland Browns. Toxic in the Twitch chat is hoping that it is a very quiet day for the Bills as Toxic faces wife in the Vampire League semifinal. And she's rocking with the Josh Allen, James Cook, I was going to say stack. I don't know if that's necessarily a stack, but when Buffalo scores a touchdown, odds are she's been involved in that in some way. It's just they're going up against one of the best defenses in the NFL. Cleveland, fourth fewest points allowed to quarterbacks this season and ninth fewest allowed to wide receivers. You start your studs in these matchups. There is not a chance that you can feel confident rolling with the quarterback here at this particular time. I don't think you can do that. I don't feel like there's a chance that you can sit the quarterback. Sorry, apologies. You have to start Josh Allen. There is no way you get to the semifinals, and unless we're in a guillotine league, you get to the semifinals and like, you know what? Yeah, Josh Allen's not the play this week. You have to roll with Superman when he is out there. And James Cook, same situation. No one else, though. I'm not trusting the pass catchers. I don't even know if I'm trusting the tight ends. I know that they have been active in the offense, and Dawson Knox was one of the dumpster darlings last week, but I feel like you can find better options out there. On the Cleveland side, we talked about Shedeur in the waiver wire rebound. This would not be a play for him this week, I don't believe. Buffalo allowing the fourth fewest points to quarterbacks. Sixth fewest points to quarterbacks, fourth fewest allowed to running backs, and the fewest to tight ends. So I don't know if we're starting any Browns. We don't really know what the situation is at running back, who's going to get the volume there. Judkins has been good. Sampson has been working his way into the offense as well. Again, a very good defense. Fourth most points allowed to running backs. Apologies. I'm screwing this one up all over the place. This is... Again, I feel like it's a good defense, and I feel like even with that fourth most points allowed to running back, like you can run on Buffalo. I don't know why I thought fewest there before. It is just the volume is a little bit complicated out there. Judkins is probably a play, but with Sampson taking a little bit more of the load, it does get a little concerning. And in deeper leagues, Sampson could be a play also, but that is it for the Browns that we are trusting there. Up next, it is the LA Chargers against the Dallas Cowboys in what is, to me, probably the most intriguing game on the fantasy football slate here this week, because you have a Dallas defense that has been a gold mine for fantasy points lately, right? Most points allowed to quarterbacks, most points allowed to running back or wide receivers, and seventh most points to the running back. But you have a Chargers team that has had troubles on the offensive line, and Herbert is obviously a little limited, even with it being a non-throwing hand injury, still a little bit limited there as well. So how much are you really trusting in this situation? And then on the other side, you have a Cowboys offense that has, again, been a goldmine for fantasy points this year, but this is a really good LA Chargers defense, and the offense is starting to fall off a little bit. Pickens is turning into a pumpkin again. So how much can you trust on either side when generally a Dallas matchup is everybody eats? So I find this one really, really intriguing. Before we get into the breakdown, again, Toxic in the chat over on YouTube now. Was there a problem on Twitch? Not complaining. Happy to have you anywhere. Just let me know if there was something that necessitated that move. I'd appreciate that. But for Dallas, when they have the ball, the Chargers have given up the second fewest points to quarterbacks this season. And this is a situation I'm in a league that I co-own with my brother-in-law. And as of this moment, we're going Herbert over Dak Prescott. We picked up Herbert on our bye week last week after we finished with the top record in the league, or one of the top. And just in case type of a thing. But now, kind of looking at it, I feel pretty comfortable with that move. Dallas defense, again, not awesome. And Herbert, I still think, is good enough to take advantage of that situation. And on the other side of it, it's probably difficult because you are likely in this spot in no small part because Dak Prescott has balled out this season. But Dak's my sit of the week. This is an offense that is starting to become a little less effective with Pickens kind of reverting to some old ways and everything like that. We have a just subscribed. I appreciate that. Thank you very much, Deeds. Yes, 22 times now. Yeah, the Booker T thing, but we'd have to do this for an hour for that. So thank you, Deeds, for the subscription on Twitch. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. And yes, hello to you. But again, I just feel like with Pickens, he is kind of turning back into what we all, or what I thought he was going to be when I was talking about how overrated Dallas was coming into the season. And to his credit, I have been wrong more than I have been right on this Cowboys team this year, but I feel like it's starting to fall off, and this Chargers defense is really good and have really been stepping up as the weeks go on. So I feel like Dak is a sit at this time. Fewest points allowed to wide receivers. I would try to find a better option than Pickens out there this week. Williams has been the volume has been steady, and so I think you can kind of roll with him there. But I would have a bit of a concern anyway with that one. So that's it's not great for a Dallas offense that has probably got a lot of people to keep playing this time of year. On the Chargers side, like I said, I'm starting Herbert over Dak Prescott this week in a league that I am in. I just feel like this offense is going to be able to eat a little bit. And I feel like this is a start your Chargers. Keenan Allen, kind of the same thing. Ladd McConkey, all these guys. Hampton, all of them, we're trusting. This is a Dallas defense has got better after the moves they made at the trade deadline, but still one that you can take advantage of. So yeah, we're liking it. We're liking it a lot. A good matchup here this week. Toxic. I'm on mobile data and can't move the stream quality down on Twitch without it lagging. The resolution options on YouTube. Okay. Good to know. Okay. Let's go now. Jets against the Saints. I did, again, the waiver wire rebound. We talked about how it doesn't feel great, but Tyler Shuck's a pretty good option this week against a Jets defense that's allowed the 10th most points to quarterbacks this season. Shuck is looking more confident as an NFL starter at the quarterback spot and has got this offense, I think, in a position where they can at least take advantage of bad matchups like the one they have against the Jets team that just had to fire their defensive coordinator for how bad he was at coordinating the defense. So I think Shuck's a play here. I'm not to a point where, like we talked about the last matchup, Herbert versus Dak. We're not starting Shuck over Dak. We're not at that point, but if we missed out on someone on the waiver wire after a Mahomes injury or something like that, Shuck is a perfectly viable option at quarterback. A lot of people are pointing to a couple of different situations in the New Orleans backfield because Neal is now going to be out as well as Alvin Kamara. But I think we have seen a couple of times this season that guessing along with that backfield can be a bit of a fool's errand. So I would avoid it if you can. There are some situations where you can't, and I understand it, and you kind of just got to roll with it. But I would have some great concern about rolling with that. So I would try to avoid it. So again, it's that weird situation where we trust the quarterback and basically no one else. Juwan Johnson, I think, could have a fine week this week at tight end. On the Jets side, I don't know who we're trusting really at this point. We talked about Adonai Mitchell being an option in the waiver wire rebound. Deeper leagues, I think it can. And I think there is a real opportunity for him again, even with Cook potentially being the starter at quarterback. New Orleans' defense is better than people thought. It's still not great. So I think there are a few chances here for them to kind of step up, or for Adonai Mitchell, to kind of step up. And I think, again, if you are someone who had a bit of a rough Thursday, there's an opportunity to kind of take that big swing with Adonai Mitchell and try to get some of those points back. So that would be kind of the only Jet that I am trusting right now. Burning it up 86 had to come here. Twitch mobile was being twitchy. Okay, thank you for letting me know. Apologies that we're having some issues over there. So hopefully everything is fine on the YouTube end. But yeah, it's been a bit of a technical nightmare the last couple of days around here. So going to spend the holiday season trying to fix that and maybe make some changes to some of the stuff that we use here with Couch Potato Diary. Again, I say wait, it's me. I'm the only one in here talking. But either way, I appreciate you popping over on the YouTube side to come say hi. I really do appreciate that from all of you guys. Yes, hello Deeds, who I met in person. I don't know if we've talked about this on the stream yet, but had a Deeds sighting at one of the live events that we did for for Sportsnet 960. So really, really cool to get that out in the wild. Let's move to now a matchup that I don't think anyone at the start of the season thought was going to be an intriguing one, or one that we would spend more than 5 seconds on in a fantasy football discussion. But it is the battle for the NFC South, with Tampa Bay taking on Carolina. When the Panthers have the football, the Buccaneers defense is kind of wearing out a little bit. Third most points allowed to quarterbacks this season, fifth most points allowed to the tight end. So again, we talked about it in the waiver wire rebound. Bryce Young's an option this week. I am, again, maybe not saying that he crosses the Dak threshold where we're starting him over him in a tough matchup against the Chargers. But again, if we missed out on Mahomes, or if we had a Mahomes injury, survived to the semifinals, Bryce Young is someone that we can kind of bank on and give us an opportunity to win in our fantasy matchups. At running back, Chuba Hubbard, I thought that he would kind of win that starting job back. That hasn't really been the case. I don't think you can trust him here against what is still, it's a neutral matchup for fantasy, but it's still a pretty good run defense for Tampa Bay. Rico Dowdle, I think, is going to get enough volume that he can kind of be the play there. So I think he can be pretty okay as a fantasy option this week. And Tedero McMillan, I'm fine trusting him as a bit of a roller coaster season winds down. When Tampa Bay has the ball, Carolina has actually been tough against quarterbacks this year, 9th fewest points to QBs and 10th fewest allowed to wide receivers. I think there's obviously some kind of an issue with Baker. And so, I mean, the good news is if you had Baker, you probably aren't burdened by this decision because you've been eliminated by now. But I don't think Baker may. It's crazy that Bryce Young is the quarterback that we can trust in the fantasy playoffs over Baker Mayfield. But I think that's just where we are at this particular time. Bucky Irving is certainly someone you can trust against Carolina. You can run the ball against these guys. I think we're at a point. Igbuka is not a receiver that we can roll with. But Mike Evans, if he's starting, I think you have to kind of roll with that one. Just name value, star power alone for you there for Tampa Bay. But a very interesting one, that is for sure, with that matchup. Up next, it is the Minnesota Vikings taking on the New York Giants. The Vikings have given up the third fewest points to quarterbacks this season, the second fewest points allowed to wide receivers. I don't think I'm touching this one from a New York Giants standpoint, regardless of how fun some of the guys on that team may be, and the nice boost that we were able to get from a Singletary a time ago, or Tyrone Tracy last week. Maybe Tracy just based on the volume, but I'm not doing it with my chance of the fantasy playoffs on the line, or fantasy final on the line. I don't think I'm rolling with anyone with an NYG by their name unless I have to. This is where it gets a little bit stressful because, again, it's kind of like the Baker Mayfield one. If you have Justin Jefferson, there's a chance you don't have to make a decision about it because your team's been eliminated, like mine. But the Giants have allowed the third most points to wide receivers this season. I don't think they have anyone in that secondary that can cover Justin Jefferson. And so J.J. McCarthy, we're hitting dance moves into the end zone and stuff like that. Maybe it's feeling a little bit comfortable. I get that there was it wasn't a great week for Jefferson last week against Dallas. Naylor was able to kind of eat. Justin Jefferson's my start of the week. I can't not trust him in a matchup against the New York Giants with the season on the line. So I have to roll with the guy who I took number one. Again, there's a pretty good chance you may not have to, but he and Aaron Jones, both my starts of the week. Third most points allowed to wide receivers, third most points allowed to running backs for the New York Giants. So we're rolling with that. Hawkinson, you might be able to find a better option there. They've actually been weirdly good against tight ends this season. Firebros2675 is back in the chat. If you were to sit two, which two would you sit? AJ Brown, Nico Collins, Tedero McMillan, Mike Evans, and Wandale. Happy holidays. Happy holidays to you, Firebros. All right, we're sitting two. We're sitting Wandale. I just said I'm not trusting anyone against Minnesota here this week. So Wandale Robinson is a no-go for me. A.J. Brown, it's a great matchup against Washington. We're not sitting him. Nico Collins, it's a great matchup against the Raiders. He could get 100, so no. So now we're down to Tedero McMillan and Mike Evans. Oh, from the same game. Holy crap. I feel like it's Evans that we're sitting there. That's crazy to me that I'm saying that. But yeah, Carolina's been a bit tougher on wide receivers than Tampa Bay has been. And I think there is some kind of an injury thing happening with Baker Mayfield. So it feels bad. It feels gross to say that out of my mouth, but I think we're sitting Mike Evans and Wan'Dale Robinson in that spot. Wan'Dale feels very good, but yeah, I think we're sitting Mike Evans in that spot. That's crazy to me to say that, but I think that's what we're doing this week, Fire Bros. And hopefully that can get you into the fantasy finals there. Up next, it is Kansas City against Tennessee. Boy, this matchup has a bit of a different tone to it now after Kansas City was mathematically eliminated from playoff contention. Oh, on that last one, we're not sitting Michael Wilson. I get that maybe Arizona's offense is getting a little bit healthier, and maybe that pushes him back a little bit, but Wilson's been really good in fantasy. Atlanta, it's a relatively okay defense. They've actually given up quite a bit of points to wide receivers, so we're not sitting Michael Wilson in that spot either. Man, maybe I said before we're starting Mike Evans based on name value. Maybe we're not, because seems like we're putting him pretty far down now. But yeah, we're not sitting Michael Wilson this week there either. So those, again, it stays Wan'Dale Robinson and Mike Evans in that spot. Fire Bros. All right, like I said, Kansas City taking on the Tennessee Titans. I'm not sure what we're trusting in this. It's a great matchup for the Chiefs offense, but it's Gardner Minshew who is at the helm. So obviously we're not starting him. At running back, Pacheco just has not taken advantage of the opportunities that have been presented to him. So I would have a difficult time rolling with him, even in a good matchup. Kareem Hunt, if you're comfortable having him on your team, it's a start probably this week. With Gardner throwing the ball, I'm worried a little bit about the fantasy value of the pass catchers. And Rice got dinged up in that last game, so we'll check on his health. If he's healthy, you probably have to play him against Tennessee. Like that might be a bridge too far. But like to Fire Bros question from earlier, I would start him. I would start Rice over Mike Evans this week if he is healthy. But that's probably the only pass catching option there, the wide receiving option, I guess. And then Kelsey. Kind of just have to at this time. And then on the Titans, Kansas City's defense is too good. We're not starting anyone on Tennessee against Kansas City here. So that one is a hard pass for me there. Nice and easy one there. Up next, a couple quarterbacks in the news as Cincinnati takes on the Miami Dolphins. Cincinnati has been a goldmine for fantasy players this year. But it's Quinn Ewers getting the start at quarterback. That'd be bold if you had to roll with Quinn Ewers as your fantasy quarterback here this week. We're obviously not doing that. On the Miami side, like Waddle is still good enough that you kind of have to. HN is still good enough you kind of have to. Waller is actually my start of the week at tight end. It's maybe an overblown theory at this point, but generally, young rookie quarterbacks really like that safety blanket of the tight end. Also, the Bengals, aside from last week, some crazy how, are genuinely atrocious at covering tight ends, to the point if you wonder if they know that tight ends exist in the sport. 3 different tight ends got touchdowns for the Buffalo Bills in that wild game a couple of weeks ago. So Darren Waller, with a young quarterback who's going to be looking for some of those quick reads over the middle, that feels like a pretty good day there. Again, watch the injury report because he has had some concerns on the injury side of things as the weeks have kind of or as the week has kind of gone along. Sorry. On the Cincinnati side, Miami's defense has allowed the 8th fewest points to wide receivers and the 3rd most points to tight ends. Joe Burrow did a thing on the taped couch potato that we had to do about him looking for a trade. So there's some weird things going on there. We're starting Joe Burrow. If we made it here with Joe Burrow, we're starting Joe Burrow against Miami. And I get 8th fewest points to wide receivers. If we made it here with Chase, we're not sitting him either. And if Higgins is healthy, we probably have to play him in that matchup. And same goes for Chase Brown. So we're starting our Bengals in this matchup here with Miami, but a very noteworthy one. And maybe we'll get into some of the storylines there when we do our actual pick-by-pick breakdown for each game here in a little bit on the stream. Jacksonville taking on the Denver Broncos. This is a prove-it game to me for Jacksonville. and one that I'm not necessarily trusting them in. But we'll start with Denver. When they have the football, this Jags defense has been good. Second fewest points allowed to running backs this season, and the eighth most points allowed to tight ends. So that has been a bit of an issue, but the running back thing is legit. And because of that, RJ Harvey is my sit of the week. I don't trust him anyway. I get that he has been putting up some numbers lately. A couple of them have been helped by touchdowns, but touchdowns happen. But this Jacksonville run defense is for real. So I would have a tough time in trusting RJ Harvey this week. So he is my stay away, my sit of the week. Obviously, matchup pending and what is on your roster, but that is just one of the ones that I am just nope. Don't want much part of that one there. Bo Nix, again, I would have a difficult time starting him. I understand he had a very good week last week, but again, Jacksonville's defense just concerns me enough to kind of stay away from that one. On the Jacksonville side, when they have the ball, speaking of legit defenses, that's what this Denver one is. And I kind of don't want a whole lot to do with Jacksonville this week. Lawrence is a no-go, absolutely. ETN, you would kind of have to roll with him, probably at this point, especially now with Tootin going down with an injury. There's going to be more volume for ETN to have, so he may not have an explosive day, but he might just get the ball enough that it's going to guide him down that path. But my sit of the week at wide receiver is Jacoby Myers. I think that he is going to see a lot of Patrick Surtain, and that generally does not lead to a lot of fantasy goodness there. I know he has had a breakout campaign with Jacksonville, and a lot of you probably have to start him anyway, but Jacoby Myers would be my sit of the week. I don't think I'm trusting a lot in... This is going to be a great football game, but I'm not loving a whole lot of what is happening there on the offensive side for either team in that matchup. Atlanta taking on Arizona. Arizona's offense has just been steady with Jacoby Brissett at quarterback. We talked about Michael Wilson earlier with Fire Bros. I like him this week against an Atlanta defense that has allowed the eighth most points to wide receivers. The running back room is very crowded and confusing there. So if you have one of them and they're playing, I think you kind of have to trust it. If I say that, but then there's probably some pretty good options out there to start over those guys. So it's a case-by-case basis, but I would feel okay about it. And Brissett, I think you can roll with him as the quarterback here against Atlanta, which is weird because I also said that I think you can feel okay about Atlanta as a streaming defense this week against Arizona. They've been steady, but it's not to the point where I think it will kill you. And there's just not a lot of great streaming options out there on the defensive side here as we head into the semifinals and the finals, where a lot of teams I think have kind of stocked up on the defenses that they want and the ones that would be advantageous here in the final weeks of the fantasy season. On the Atlanta side, Drake London is obviously the big concern. He has been banged up the last couple of weeks. It sounds like he could go and maybe on a pitch clock. If Drake London is active, I would have a very difficult time keeping him on my bench with the understanding that there maybe is a pitch clock on this guy. But he is so talented. And when you see what Kyle Pitts was able to do last Thursday, you want some of that, right? So Drake London, I think, has to be a part of what you are doing if you have him in your roster, and he is on that active list for Sunday. Kirk Cousins, obviously a no-go. Bijan Robinson is obviously a yes. Arizona, the seventh most points allowed to tight ends. And if you're in this spot and you have Kyle Pitts, you're probably here because you have Kyle Pitts. I think you got to start him again in this one this week. Moving on, Raiders taking on the Houston Texans. When Houston has the ball, this is an easy one. Start him. Woody Marks, it's sounding a little iffy about whether he will play or not this week. Nick Chubb could be checking back into the lineup. He's a go, absolutely. If he is in, everyone who thought they were maybe a little bit smarter than everyone, crazy like a fox with Jawar Jordan, I would have a tough time trusting that, even in what is going to be a very good matchup here for the Texans. CJ Stroud is a player that I think we can absolutely trust against a Raiders defense that is just getting picked apart now at this point in the season. So again, Chubb, if Woody Marks is going, then he's a go. if he's not, Nick Chubb is probably a go. And honestly, he might be a go anyway, just because we saw when those two guys were healthy, Chubb actually got a little bit more of the volume there, if I remember right anyway. So I think both running backs could start or could be startable, sorry, for Houston. We're starting our Texans. We had Higgins in the waiver wire rebound. These are all guys that you roll with here. If they have HOU by their name, we're probably trusting them. And for the Raiders, like, this Texans defense is maybe the best in football. Fewest points allowed to quarterbacks, third fewest to wide receivers, ninth fewest to running backs, and eighth fewest to tight ends. I would have a hard time believing you have a better tight end option than Brock Bowers on your bench. And I also, the Genty conversation is a tough one. I would probably sit him this week. I think this is going to be another very bad week for the Raiders, and I think you could come up with two running back options on your team that are better and a flex option that's better than Ashton Genty this week for the Raiders. Pittsburgh taking on Detroit. Fascinating matchup to me, both from a football standpoint and a fantasy standpoint. For the Steelers, the eighth most points allowed to quarterbacks this season. They've allowed, though, the 10th fewest to running backs and the second most to tight ends. This is not a defense you stay away from anymore. It isn't at this point in the season. So for Detroit, I think we can trust Goff this week. The two wide receivers gonna play, Amon-Ra and Williams. At running back, Gibbs, Montgomery, like, if they're healthy and they play for Detroit, it's a go this week. We saw against a very good Rams defense last week how much this offense kind of put together. So they could do that again against a pretty bad Steelers defense. When Pittsburgh has the ball, Detroit's allowed the fifth most points to quarterbacks this season, second most to wide receivers, and third fewest to running backs. Aaron Rodgers, it's not a great hang, but I think you can trust him. Again, we're not putting Rodgers over Dak Prescott, but there are probably some options where Rodgers is the better one for, so I think you can feel okay about putting him in your lineup this week. DK Metcalf, I don't think Detroit has the secondary to hang with DK, so I think he has a pretty good game. Warren, Gainwell, PPR has been pretty good. The percentage of targets on routes run, he is one of the best. He just isn't out there all the time. But if we're desperate, he can go. And Jaylen Warren, again, one where I think you could find a better option than him. But if you have to start him, I don't think you have to be too concerned about it. But I would maybe try to find some better options out there, is all I'm saying. And then we get into our primetime matchups of the week, which is a reminder that you can follow me on social media. I am at Primetime Klein on Instagram, Threads, X, TikTok, Blue Sky, all the places of social media. I think I am there at Primetime Klein. Sunday Night Football is the Patriots taking on the Ravens. Another must-win for the Baltimore Ravens against a Patriots team that had a bit of a rough one last week against Buffalo. When the Ravens have the football, the Patriots are the fourth fewest, have given up the fourth fewest points to running backs this season and the ninth most to tight ends. Now, be tough to trust the tight ends after what we saw a week ago with Andrews and Likely each struggling. I would have a tough time trusting them again this week, especially Likely, but it would be a little bit difficult to trust either of those guys. Lamar, we have to play him. You're not sitting him at this point. Same thing goes with Derrick Henry, but there isn't a whole lot else there that I love from a fantasy perspective here for the Baltimore Ravens in the fantasy semifinals. When the Patriots have the ball, the Ravens have given up the sixth fewest points to tight ends. It hasn't been a banner year for Baltimore defensively. They have got better as the weeks have gone on, as they've got healthier. Surprise, surprise there. But Drake May, probably a start this week. I think we kind of got to roll with that one there. Henderson breaks off the big play, and you saw what he could do last week. I think you kind of got to roll with him as well. But my sit of the week at tight end is Hunter Henry. I can't trust Hunter Henry in this spot. I know a few teams have really kind of funneled everything from New England toward the tight end. I just feel like Baltimore, the way they cover tight ends, like this is them allowing the sixth fewest points to tight ends. Sometimes it's a little fluky. Sometimes it's a game plan thing. I think because of the athleticism that they have at safety and at linebacker, it's a real thing to keep the ball away from the tight end. So Hunter Henry is not a go for me in this matchup. we move to Monday Night Football as the San Francisco 49ers take on Phillip Rivers and the Indianapolis Colts. When San Fran has the ball, the Colts have allowed the fourth most points to wide receiver and the 10th most points to tight ends. The one thing that would concern me about playing San Francisco is that the Colts kind of just dribbled the air out of the ball when they had it on offense. Like they really limited the amount of possessions that game had against Seattle, which is one of the reasons why the offensive numbers didn't look that great. And this is still, like, they've given up points to, like I said, to wide receivers and tight ends this year. It's a good defense. It's not a great one, but it's not all right, we're starting everybody against these guys. But we're starting our studs. Like, we're not, oh my God, they're playing Indianapolis. Well, I can't start Christian McCaffrey indoors. No. CMC's going to run. Kittle's going to have a pretty good game, I think. Brock Purdy, I think you can kind of roll with him as well. On the Colts side, it's just tough to trust. Obviously, we're not starting Phillip Rivers in the fantasy semifinals. That should go without saying, but I said it, so we're fine. And I have a tough time trusting those pass-catching options, man. I do. I think Jonathan Taylor and probably Warren are the only two that I really feel good about. The one thing that concerns me, I was listening to Move the Sticks today with Daniel Jeremiah and Bucky Brooks, and they were talking about how everyone saw last week that Rivers is obviously limited. There is a point, though, where you kind of crowd the line too much, and Rivers can just, like, and just, like, toss it up immediately and just hope one of his guys can run under it and try to bust off a big play there. So I have a concern that could happen. So if you have a desperate need after facing a Puka or a JSN on Thursday and you have an Alec Pierce on your bench, it might be worth just going down swinging with that kind of a boom player anyway. So that might be the only time I'm trusting any of the other Indianapolis Colts options. But San Francisco is definitely an option defensively as well. And I was surprised when they popped up in the waiver wire rebound for us here this week. So those are the breakdowns of every game from the NFL. We're going to move on to some other subjects here on the stream today. But if you have any questions at any time, just throw them in the chat. Get your fantasy football questions in. You can also put them in the comments here. Agree, disagree, or just need any lineup help, let me know in the comments and we can all chat about it then and have a nice time about all of those things. Or you can get at me on social media at Primetime Klein. So that is the breakdown from a fantasy perspective. But what about the actual, games and NFL? Why am I blanking on the repercussions? That's it. This is a monster week in the National Football League. Some huge matchups that are really going to help settle the playoff picture in the NFL. So let's go game by game and break down this week with our picks and analysis of every game in the NFL. All right. So if you're looking for fantasy football advice, we just did it on the stream. If you're watching on the stream, you can throw the questions in. If you're watching this after the fact, on just the video on YouTube, that video will also be posted. You can go check out all the fantasy advice over there. And we have playlists that break up the fantasy football stuff and the NFL game breakdowns. So you can catch whatever you need from the NFL breakdown world here with Couch Potato Diary. We will start with the Saturday game. 3 o'clock Mountain Time is the start for the Eagles taking on the Washington Commanders. Philadelphia favored by 7 with a total at 44.5. I am done saying that the Eagles are back and that was a statement win or whatever, but I do think that the win against the Raiders does kind of course correct a few things for this Eagles club and does kind of get them back on track. Washington, they feel beat up. They feel kind of done to me and just kind of playing out the string here. So this is another chance for Philadelphia to kind of quiet the haters, so to speak, and go with it that way. The one thing that concerns me is, like, that 7-point spread is high. I get they just beat the Raiders by 31, but they have had a bit of a tough time really putting some of these teams away so far this season, where we've seen that they kind of play with their food on offense a little bit. These two teams have not played this season. They played 2 of the last 3 weeks, so we don't have that head-to-head kind of matchup to go on. But I think they'll be okay here. But it really does feel like an Eagles team that kind of understands they were going to win their division anyway. And they are trying, I think, a bit too hard to prove people wrong. They are trying to... Oh, you don't think that Jalen Hurts can beat you with his arm? Here's Jalen Hurts' passing attack. Oh, you think we're only a rushing team? Well, here, Jalen Hurts is just going to be a pocket passer. And A.J. Brown's a little upset. We're just going to feed A.J. Brown. Like, it feels like they're still trying to prove everyone wrong. And that has led to a lot of very ineffective performances from Philadelphia. I worry about that spread when we're going pick-wise. Eagles are going to win this football game. It might be a bit closer, though, than that 7. Washington's defense is too bad to take the under on this one either. So this is a tough one to go from a picks perspective. I try to make a pick on every game that we do here anyway. So Eagles -7. It feels very chalky, but we just kind of got to go with it. Eagles minus the 7 points. Burning Up 86 Deeds, as we know him on the Twitch side. Oh, before I forget, happy holidays, PK Toxic, and everyone in all the chats on all platforms. Happy holidays to you as well. Deeds Burning It Up 86. Burning It Up 86 on YouTube, and Deeds Undone over on Twitch. Yes, very, very, again, happy holidays. I really appreciate the support all year from everyone who, if you've tuned in for every stream, or if this is the literally the first words you're hearing coming out of my mouth, and everyone who's listened in podcast form as well, that this has been an unbelievable year with Couch Potato Diary, and I love being able to do these live and come in and chat with all the people who are stopping by. And yeah, Deeds, Toxic, we have Big John and Tall John as well, and Crash Andrews by many other names, who popped in throughout the year. So thank you to all of you guys, and yes, happy holidays to everyone here from Couch Potato Diary. Let's go to the other game on Saturday. The primetime matchup on Saturday is Green Bay taking on Chicago. The Bears are favored by 1.5 in this game, with the total sitting at 46.5. I like the Bears here. I feel like they are playing better football at this time, and the Packers a little bit banged up. Obviously, you know, Watson and Parsons, little banged up thing. And that was a tough loss against Denver last week. That being said, the opportunity to get a Super Bowl contender plus points is really intriguing to me. So that is where there's a bit of a conundrum going on there. And I feel like both of these games could burn me, because I've been a bit like, that seems a little too far, but I kind of feel it's going to go this way, so let's just go with it anyway. Maybe I need to trust my gut a little bit more, but I'm going to go Bears -1.5. Caleb Williams getting a little bit more comfortable in the passing game. They do have some injuries at receiver that could limit them a little bit, but what does this defense look like with no Micah Parsons? I don't feel great about it. He has really stepped up in the last little bit, and now gone for the season is really, really difficult for them. So I feel like Bears -1.5 is the way to go here in this spot. That total feels a little high. 46.5. Maybe that's the play. Under 46.5. We'll stick with Bears 1.5. And we'll go under at 46.5 as well. Back in the YouTube chat, we have a question here from AS-ET7YJ. Starting Devontae or Goddard in the flex this week? Ooh, that is a really good question. Because I was saying we start our Eagles. So I don't know what you're rocking with at tight end. That is making Goddard be a flex option. But I mean, God, they're bad against both. I would go with Goddard. Smith has been kind of a big play thing, and that has helped out, obviously. But I think Goddard is going to get a little bit more reliable target volume in this game and be a little bit more consistent there. So Goddard would be my call over Devonta Smith this week. But I will say, AS dash all of those things. If you played like Puka last week, if you're like me in the consolation of the Vampire League and we're down by 50 going into Sunday or Saturday, I guess in this case, and you need that big play potential, Devontae would be the one for me. Like if we're either you don't love the projections, but if we're projected to lose by a lot, or we faced a big performance from Thursday, Devontae is a good play to kind of get that back. But if we just need to keep it between the white lines, just put the ball in play, overall Goddard is the play for me there. But a desperation swing to Devontae isn't bad either. We have don't at me, bro, on YouTube. Do I risk and wait for T. Higgins? Other options are Devontae Smith and DJ Moore in a PPR league. Again, that's a very tricky one because Cincinnati going up against Miami, I still feel good about that and about Higgins, but again, there is the injury concern. Miami is still decent against wide receivers, not to the point where if Higgins was healthy, I would still bench him, but I do like your opportunity here to go with Devontae or with DJ Moore. I think DJ Moore is going to have a lot of, again, predictable volume against a Green Bay defense that's a little bit banged up now. So I wouldn't risk it. I would go with DJ Moore in that spot over T. Higgins. So yeah, Moore. Honestly, I would probably go Devontae Smith too over Higgins. That's how I feel with that. Yes, yeah. Higgins on Sunday, the others on Saturday. I understand where the issue is coming from there. Yes, no, sorry if I didn't make that clear before. So yeah, I can see where the concern is. I would rank that Moore, Smith, and Higgins, given the situation we are in. If everyone was playing at the same time on Sunday, and Higgins was healthy, Higgins would be the play. But because of the spot that you are in, and we just can't risk that, and like looking at what would be after, because they are one of the early games, right? It's not a yeah, okay. So that is 1 o'clock slate for the Eastern folks. For us here in the Mountain Time Zone, it's 11 a.m. By the way, best time zone to watch football in is the Mountain Time Zone, but that's neither here nor there. If they were all in the early games, then it would be Higgins. Looking at what could be available waiver wire wise behind it, there just isn't that play that I think you would feel great about. So yeah, I think you have to be safe in this spot and go with DJ Moore. And yeah, I would rank it Moore, Smith, and Higgins there. AS saying thank you. Played Puka, but still favored at 55%. Gonna rip the G-Man Uncle Goddard. Love it. Man, that's a pretty good team. I mean, if we're worried about if Goddard can play as our flex, we got a good team anyway. And if we played Puka last week and still favored by 55%, AS, you're doing well. Doing very well. So congratulations on that. Yes, keep the fantasy football questions coming in the chat. We're doing a game-by-game breakdown here from a picks perspective, but if you want to get the fantasy questions in, fire away, and we will answer every one of them that I see anyway in the chat here today. Let's get back into the football breakdowns, talking about the games on Saturday. For those of you who are new here, I am a Raider fan, so I'm going through this on the Score app, and I have the Raiders starred, so they're at the top, and I don't trust my Vivans to remember to come back up when we go through these games, so we're going Raiders next. Raiders against the Texans, even though chronologically it is one of the 2 o'clock games. Yeah, we're rolling with this one here. Raiders against the Texans. Not a lot of faith in the Vegas offense because the Texans are favored by 14 and the total is at 38.5. So when you're looking at implied point totals, doesn't leave the Raiders with a whole lot. And it doesn't leave a whole lot for us to break down. Vegas is an atrocious football team. They have about 3 NFL players on their roster right now. It's a bad team, and the Texans are balling right now and battling for a playoff spot. I think the Texans win this one by a bunch. I would even look at some alternate lines aside from Texans minus 14 to kind of roll with there because I think that they just do awful things there. The one thing I will say, the Texans offensive line still isn't great. Max Crosby is. So there is an opportunity that Max Crosby still gets his in these games. So if you wanted to look at some kind of a player prop, Crosby sacks, I think there is one there. But yeah, Texans minus $1 million for the pick for that game. I will say, don't at me, bro. If you felt really if you really wanted to roll the dice with Higgins, I still wouldn't. I think you have better options with Moore and with Smith. But if you really felt like Higgins was your play, and this goes for everyone, not just don't at me, bro. If you have a spot where there are some injury issue in the 11 o'clock hour, that Mountain Time, 1 o'clock, the slate, that you aren't in love with and you need a bit of a safety net, Jaden Higgins is still available in a lot of fantasy leagues. And again, it's a great matchup against the Raiders. So if you wanted to roll the dice with Higgins and then recognize like, okay, he's not playing, so we just got to get another guy in from the 2 o'clock games, that would probably be one of the better bets to throw in there. So just if you needed that safety net, but for don't at me, bro, you're in a good play there with DJ Moore. So I would roll with that. Back to the 1 o'clock games, or 11 o'clock again for us here in the Mountain Zone. Buffalo taking on the Cleveland Browns. Bills favored by 10.5 points with the total at 41.5. Again, Cleveland, Shador, it's cool playing better at times when he's got the right wristband. Anyway, Bills are going to walk here. I'm surprised it's only 10.5, to be perfectly honest with you. So I think Buffalo takes this one down here pretty well, minus the 10.5 points. I would love to have more in-depth analysis than Buffalo's better at football than Cleveland, but Buffalo's better at football than Cleveland is. We have seen the Bills have a couple of banana peel games. It was closer with New Orleans than it should have been. They got worked by Miami, but this offense is not, for Cleveland, this offense is not the one that will give this Buffalo defense any kind of issue. So we're rolling with our Buffalo Bills here on Sunday. Chargers taking on the Dallas Cowboys. Cowboys favored by 2.5 with a total at 49.5. Yes, the offensive line issues for the Chargers are concerning, but this defense is for real for Los Angeles. And I think that's where they're going to give Dallas some problems. And maybe I am still a little bit too take committed saying that Dallas's offense could be a little overrated this year, because obviously they've been spectacular all season long. But with Pickens getting a little boo-boo face now and all of that, I do wonder if it starts to fall back a little bit. Also, with Derwin James kind of monitoring everything at the safety position, I think a lot of those deep shots that Dallas really relies on aren't going to be there on Sunday. So I am surprised that Dallas is favored in this spot, unless Herbert's arm fell off in the last hour since we've been talking here. Yeah, give me the Chargers here. I'll take Chargers money line. I think they win this one. I also like under 49.5. I don't think this is going to be that kind of a game with the Chargers and the Cowboys. And I get that the Cowboys have dragged a lot of good defenses into these wild games, but I don't think this is going to be one of those ones. I like the Chargers here in this spot. Jets against the Saints. New Orleans favored by 6. Total is at 40.5. Jets are kind of playing out the string. Saints are actually playing a little bit more competitively. We don't have to talk a lot about this game. It's Saints -6. I like that one. Also take a look at some Tyler Shugg passing props and see if maybe there's an opportunity there with some passing yardage, because I think you could have a pretty good day for New Orleans. Huge matchup in the AFC South. Tampa Bay and Carolina playing for their playoff lives as these two teams sit right now in the NFC playoff picture. They are tied at 7-7. One of them's going to win the division, and odds are the other one's going to be eliminated from playoff contention. And these two teams play each other twice here in the next 3 weeks. It is such a fascinating matchup, because if you were to just look at the two teams on paper and just go like Madden, turn injuries off, Tampa Bay rolls in this game. But Baker is obviously compromised a little bit, and this defense has had some struggles. And I think there's some complementary football things going on here. I think there's just some general, the defense maybe isn't that great issues as well, and they've been able to kind of mask some of those problems over the last couple of years. But with Baker not being able to sustain some of these drives, there's a real problem, and the defense is on the field a lot. Well, Carolina has been wildly inconsistent, but they've taken advantage of matchups like this, and they've played some better football as the weeks have gone on. Give me the Panthers here. They're the underdogs here. Tampa Bay -3, total at 45.5. I think the issues with Baker are bad enough to a point where it pushes them below Carolina for me. So I like the Panthers in this spot here. I think that 45.5 is a pretty good total, but I like the Panthers here. So give me Carolina. I'm not going to go bold enough and say money line, but I like Carolina plus the 3 for that matchup. Also in the 1 o'clock slate, Minnesota taking on the New York Giants. Vikings favored by 3 with a total of 43.5. That's a little disrespectful to this Vikings team, in my opinion. Minnesota, it has been a struggle at times for McCarthy this season, but you look at it, after getting pistol whipped in their division, they have come back with a dominant performance against Washington and a dominant performance against the Cowboys here in back-to-back weeks. I think McCarthy's turning things around a little bit. Now, this will be the last time we pick them because Detroit and Green Bay await. And again, they're going to get curb stomped in those games. They're going to, awful. But against bad teams, this Vikings club can do all right. The problem is we don't have a lot of experience with that. This Viking schedule has really been difficult this year. You look at their losses. Eagles, Chargers, Ravens, Bears, Packers, Seahawks. So you can see where they've had a bit of an issue because of the schedule that they are running. Sorry, also lost to the Steelers and to the Falcons. So we're not talking about the elites there, but recently, some very, very good teams that they are losing to. Now, I think the rest, with a good quarterback, that team beats some of those. But I feel like maybe everyone was just ready to write off J.J. McCarthy, and it hasn't been perfect. And there have been some injury issues in there as well, and they've handled it really weird. But he has played well against bad defenses. Giants, bad defense. So, give me the Vikings here, minus the 3. Again, that number just feels a little disrespectful for me, for Minnesota. Kansas City taking on the Tennessee Titans. Chiefs favored by 3. The total sitting at 37.5. Again, this game doesn't matter. And it's crazy there. The Titans are very used to playing games that don't matter for Kansas City. This is kind of new territory, really, but not to this extent. Even with Gardner Minshew at quarterback, the Kansas City defense is good enough that they're going to be able to shut down the Titans. So yeah, Chiefs minus 3. Let's lock that one in. Cincinnati taking on the Miami Dolphins. The Bengals favored by 4 with a total sitting at 47.5. The big news coming out of this game around both quarterbacks. Joe Burrow sounds pretty over it with things in Cincinnati. Did a video on Couch Potato Diary earlier. It's going to be posted on YouTube later, but I'll probably play it here on the stream. We had some live issues, so I just pre-recorded it, but wanted to kind of put it out there for all of you guys today. So we'll probably run that one here after in kind of a taped format. I'll stay around in the chat, but for those watching on the live stream, that's going to be coming up here in a second. But for Joe Burrow, obviously there is a lot of frustration. Getting hurt because the offensive line is bad, working your way back, and then still having those problems. It's a lot to deal with for a guy. So you can see where there is frustration building there. On the Miami side, they have certainly planted a flag on what they're going to do, I think, next season. Very real chance Tua has played his last game with Miami. I get it would be expensive to get away from him. It's the NFL. You can figure that out salary cap wise anywhere. So I would be surprised if there was another snap played by Tua as the quarterback for the Miami Dolphins. Quinn Ewers, fine college quarterback, 7th round pick. Maybe they find another Brock Purdy here. I am surprised at the total being at 47.5. I get Cincinnati's defense is bad, but we haven't seen this kid play. So it feels crazy to take the under with the Bengals defense being so bad. But I like Cincinnati minus 4, and I like the under. We've seen a lot of rookie quarterbacks come in and just feel overwhelmed. I think Ewers is going to be that as well this week. He just happens to have played at a good school, so we know the name. But I don't think he's any different than some of the other young quarterbacks that we've seen come in this year in kind of backup emergency roles and be overwhelmed. So yeah, I like Cincinnati and I like the under in that game. In the other 2 o'clock games, huge one. Jacksonville taking on the Denver Broncos. This is a prove-it game for me. I said this in the fantasy breakdown. This is a prove-it game for me for Jacksonville. They're sitting right now at 10-4, so they're 2 games back of Denver for top spot in the AFC. That feels like they can still do it, and obviously a win here makes it very, very interesting with the game against Phillip Rivers and the Colts on next Sunday, and then closing out the season against the Tennessee Titans. It is still in play for them to finish tops in the AFC. It is also still in play for them to be a wild card team because nipping at their heels are the Houston Texans, who are a game back of Jacksonville. Now the Texans have the Chargers and the Colts to close out the season, so advantage Jacksonville there, I would say. But a huge game here. This, to me, will go a long way in figuring out if Jacksonville is for real. Because we saw last week, Bo Nix has that dog in him and is capable of putting up some really good performances here. And And that defense is terrifying. So, how much has this offense grown in year one of Liam Cohen with Jacoby Myers now as a high-level wide receiver added to the room with Brian Thomas Jr. working his way back? Is ETN back to a couple of years ago? Jacksonville has been able to get a few wins this year, obviously a 10-4, but look who they've beat over the last little bit. The Jets, the Colts, the Titans, the Cardinals. Win against the Chargers, that's for real. And an impressive one. But then lost to the Texans. They beat the Raiders by 1. Bye week, lost to the Rams, lost to the Seahawks. Beat the Chiefs in a weird one on Monday night. And they had a win against the Texans in week number 3 early in the year. But it is not the most impressive resume for the Jacksonville Jaguars this year. So this is a very real test and one that goes a long way in deciding if this team is as legit as some people are saying they are, and as legit as 10-4 would tell you that they are. I personally am not buying it, and I have not also been buying it with Denver, but I buy Denver more than I buy Jacksonville. So give me the Broncos minus the 3.5 in this spot. I also think that total's a little high. I think these are two pretty good defenses, so I like the under with Jacksonville and Denver. Fantasy question in the YouTube chat. We have Epic Ape Fight. PPR quarterback with Burrows, Shug, and Stroud. Ooh, that is a good one. Shug is out. I understand his inclusion, but to me, it's Stroud. Like, that Raiders defense is atrocious. You do have to worry about Max Crosby coming in and wrecking shop. I feel like talent-wise, CJ Stroud is a lot better than what a lot of the numbers have suggested. And when you get a matchup like the one they have with the Raiders, he can really just ball it. Miami's defense is a little on the underrated side against Cincinnati here. So, like, Burrow, it's been weird the last week or so. You could see a big blow-up game and he just comes out like, yeah, we're doing it here. But I would have some concerns about that and just about where his mental state is. Shug, it's just, I can't put him ahead of these two guys. And I think Stroud is talented enough to take advantage of the Raider matchup. So give me CJ Stroud against Vegas in that one there, Epic Ape Fight. And wide receiver 2 and flex with Watson, DK, Michael Wilson, Sutton, Pittman, and Evans. So we need to pick 2 of these. I'm assuming that Watson is Christian Watson. Is he playing? I was under the impression that he was hurt, but just want to see if I have missed something here. Just give me one sec while we pull it up. Let's see, where are we? Injury report. Packers. Big letters. Week 16 versus the Bears. Pretty good matchup. Let's just get to who practiced and who didn't. I don't need a big blurb here. Come on. DNP, limited. He is questionable for the game. So, looking at that list there, I don't think we have any decisions we need to make on Saturday. I get Watson is the decision to make on Saturday. So at least you'll know. If Watson's playing, that's a boost and a pretty good matchup. So I would pencil Watson in right now and go Watson and DK against against Detroit. But if Watson is out, then honestly, I kind of rank them in the order you put them in. I would probably put I'd flip Evans and Pittman, but I would go Watson and Metcalf, and then if Watson can't go on Saturday, then Wilson would be the play over him. So yes, I would rank those right now for your wide receiver and flex, Epic. I would go Watson, Metcalf, Wilson, Sutton, Evans, Pittman. That's the order that I would go for those ones. So hopefully that helps you out for a big one here in the fantasy semifinals. Again, that one coming from the YouTube chat. Back to our game breakdowns here. Just about through. We're into the 2 o'clock games again, or 4 o'clock for those of you out east. Atlanta taking on the Arizona Cardinals. Falcons favored by 3. Cardinals and Falcons total is at 48.5. Two teams just playing out the string here a little bit. We have seen Atlanta be a bit more explosive on the offensive side as of late. Kyle Pitts having that big game, obviously, last week. Bijan doing that as well. It kind of feels like a little bit looking into a mirror for both of these teams. But I kind of like Arizona a little bit more. They've just been a little bit more steady. I think they have a little bit more talent on the defensive side, not a ton, but give me Arizona in this one. I'll take the points here. Give me Arizona plus the 3. Steelers taking on the Detroit Lions, a proper total of 52.5 with Detroit favored by 7. They looked really good against the Rams last week in a losing effort. It is now just a matter of, is that everything they had, or is that, okay, this team has really come out of it. The offense has looked a little bit more explosive with Dan Campbell calling the plays. The problem is the defense has been exposed a little bit. But on the Steelers side, I like Detroit's offense more and I like Detroit's defense more. And I think it's a bad matchup for a Steelers team that really could use a win in their battle for top spot in the AFC North. So what's on the line in this game? Right now, Pittsburgh sits as the top team in the AFC North. They are 4th among the division leaders. And the Ravens at 7-7 are a game back going into this matchup. The schedules after this: Baltimore plays Green Bay on next Saturday, and then at the Steelers to close out the season, while Pittsburgh next week, after this one here against the Lions, they get the Cleveland Browns. So they're gonna want to win this one. I don't think they can, though. I just feel like this is it's just a better football team. Lions over the Steelers. And Detroit, they have a whole lot going on as well. Detroit right now, on the outside looking in, playoff-wise, they are half a game back of Green Bay for that last wildcard spot. We've talked about it before. Green Bay, tough matchup against the Bears. Lions still an outside shot, I think, could win the division. So a lot to play for. I think Detroit's going to be motivated. They like to put on a show. I think Detroit wins this one with a blowout. So give me the Lions there on Saturday. Here in the Twitch chat, Uncle Crashy, just saying, you had me if you don't remind me to set my lineup. Picked a God Week kicker. Not that you'd want anyone from my team, just saying. Hope you're well, pal. And yeah, if you didn't remind me. Yes, I regretted that one, but you don't want to win that way, right? I don't want to win against empty roster spots. Would it have given me a better matchup in the playoffs if I would have won? Yes. May I still be playing now? Probably not, because I only put up 77 points in the quarterfinals. So water under the bridge. Happy you were able to get one big win on the way out this season, Uncle Crashy. So, yes, happy holidays to you. Hope you're doing well as well. And greatly appreciate you popping into the Vampire League this season. We go to the primetime games. And again, a reminder to follow me on social media at Primetime Klein on X, Instagram, TikTok, Threads, and Blue Sky. Again, at Primetime Klein. Ravens taking on the New England Patriots. Baltimore favored by 3 with a total of 48.5. Such a great matchup, right? And again, we talked about it before. Baltimore is a game back of Pittsburgh for top spot in that division. Just a huge, huge game for Baltimore. Again, with us thinking that the Steelers are going to lose, a chance for Baltimore to pull even with Pittsburgh. Again, Baltimore has Green Bay next week. Pittsburgh has Cleveland. So there's a chance that game on week 18 means everything or nothing. Huge game for Baltimore. Everything points to New England, right? They have a better defense. Their quarterback is playing at an elite level right now, minus the second half of last week, and they are just rolling. While Baltimore, some poor coaching decisions, everyone kind of feels a little bit washed at this point this year, but the biggest part of me is I can't picture the playoffs without Lamar and Mahomes. And obviously one of those isn't happening. So I feel like Baltimore, big game experience in this spot, all those cliche things that everyone rolls their eyes at, I feel like I kind of have to go with. I like Baltimore here, minus the 3 in what should be a real eye-opening game on Sunday night. And then the Monday nighter, San Francisco taking on the Colts. Total is at 46.5. San Francisco favored by 6. The Phillip Rivers thing has been cute, but now San Francisco and Robert Saleh have a week of game film to go over. It's indoors at home for old Philly Riv, but no. San Francisco, I think, kind of brings this fairy tale to an end on prime time, and really kind of shellax them here. So give me San Francisco minus the 6 here. I also think this goes under 46.5. I just don't think the Colts are going to be able to score enough to keep up their end of that bargain. So I like San Francisco there minus the 6 points to close out things on Monday. So let me know. Keep the football conversation going in the chat, and let me know in the comments if you disagreed with any of the games here and what is kind of your lock of the week going into the football slate on Saturday after, again, a wild game on Thursday night with the Seahawks and the Rams and the weird stuff with the referees and all of that and all the controversy around Puka. But a big performance from Seattle to start a very important Week 16. If you are new to these parts, just so you know, we are switching away now from the football conversation, at least for the live portion here. But throw the questions in the chat. I'm going to hang around in the chat here as well. And just let me know any fantasy football questions you have, any football questions you have. I'll finish up what we're talking about, and then we'll get to whatever you want to chat with there in the chat. But I do want to kind of go back to a conversation I had on the show on Wednesday. We were having some technical issues, so couldn't do it live. Taped it instead, and it's going to go up on YouTube earlier or later on today. But for those of you watching live, thought I'd give you a taste of it now. Let's go take a look at what has been, again, a weird week. Weird couple of weeks, I guess, around Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals. It feels like things are taking a very strange turn. And so I talked about that. Again, this part now that I'm going to play was pre-recorded. I'm going to hang out here. We can still chat in the chat if you guys want. And then we'll come back with some more live stuff. We'll talk some baseball, and we're going to talk some pro wrestling as well. And then whatever you guys want to in the chat. So here is from a couple of days ago, but still very relevant, around the strange situation with Joe Burrow and what could be next. Could we see a seismic change at quarterback in 2026? The way Joe Burrow is talking has a few people wondering, is that time in Cincinnati up? If it is, where could he go? Let's discuss where Joe Burrow could end up if the Cincinnati Bengals bungle one of the best quarterbacks in the National Football League. So Joe Burrow has come out and said quite a few things over the last little while, and that has led to a lot of conversations about his future. And you can see where the quarterback of the future, you would think, with the Bengals could be a little bit frustrated. They got to the Super Bowl a few years ago, and now it's going to be 3 straight years without the playoffs. And for a guy who has been, like, the fact that he wasn't the MVP last year is an organizational disgrace. The fact he wasn't in the playoffs last year is an organizational disgrace, given the, legendary numbers that offense was putting up. To have it go with just a season that was just for naught, and then to have him get hurt, fight his way back, and then still have to be running for his life and getting drilled into the ground, you can see where that frustration starts to build. I will say, in terms of the blame pie in Cincinnati, he gets a very small amount, a sliverish sliver. I will say, if you didn't maybe put as much pressure on the whole T. Higgins thing and let them sign a couple offensive linemen, maybe that gets figured out. Now, the NFL salary cap is pretty easy to work around. And the fact that they have not been able to successfully address the offensive line, I think that could be forgiven, I guess, if they didn't put all of their focus on the defense and have it still suck, right? Like, you still draft a kid in the first round and try to attack things defensively that way, and it still isn't working. So you can, again, very, very small, minute part of this is Joe Burrow's fault. But if this is an irreparable relationship, then maybe we could have some moving on here. So who are some of the teams that I could see trading for Joe Burrow? I just want to let it be known, first of all, that the list of teams that should trade for Joe Burrow is about 30, right? Like, he is one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. And there are 3 or 4 QBs that you have to think about it. Is this an upgrade? I don't know. Maybe. There's at least everyone else, it is obvious what the upgrade is. So, let's keep that in mind. Like, I am not saying, oh, well, these are the only teams that Burrow would be an improvement on. He'd be an improvement on most of them. It's just, I think that there could be a mix of motivation and a mix of the assets or the opportunity to kind of get that done, I guess, so to speak. So here are the teams that I think could work for a Joe Burrow trade. Honorable mention, Arizona Cardinals. Kyler Murray, clearly out of favor there. He could be young enough and still you know what, we can get something out of that guy. That if he was the centerpiece of a blockbuster with Burrow, if that's just what the Bengals had in mind, then I think you could see a world where that could make sense. So honorable mention to Arizona. Up first on our list, we'll go 5 through 1 on this one, I guess, is the Miami Dolphins. Obviously, they're making a big change at quarterback with Tua getting sat for Quinn Ewers. They are in a ridiculously competitive division now with Drake May and Josh Allen at the top of it for a really long time. So they're going to want to obviously improve their lot quickly. And they have a lot of weapons that you would be excited about. I don't know if it's just plug Joe Burrow in and all of a sudden this is a championship team, but it's a very dangerous one, I think, really quickly. Right now, they pick 11th in the draft. Could there be... The issue is Tua, right? And what the Bengals want to do. Like, they've locked in on Higgins. They've locked in on Chase. They don't have a lot else, I guess, but they've locked in on those guys. The Bengals aren't traditionally the biggest spenders, which is one of the problems that you are seeing here. Would Tua and his gigantic contract be a detriment or an addition because they want someone who is kind of NFL ready, quotes? That would be the worst landing spot for Tua, given the offensive line things there. But you could, if you are Cincinnati, do you talk yourself into, he just needs a change of scenery, needs to, like, we got the weapons that he can work it with, and we can make an offense around him that would work. Probably wouldn't be the best considering the coldness of it all, but for Tua anyway. But I still wonder the youth and all of that, does it just kind of he fell into the Burrow spot? I'm not saying it's 1 for 1. Right now, Miami would be picking 11th in the draft. Would you do my 11th, Tua, and the first next year for Joe Burrow? And then the Bengals with Tua, you can draft an offensive lineman, a couple of them, in the first round with picks that are going to be decently high, and see if you can kind of build things out that way. So just the first one, again, I don't know how likely any of these are. It's just kind of a, what could these destinations be? Up next, the New York Jets. I think the one thing we've established with the Jets this year is they don't have a quarterback of the future in that building. Respect to Tyrod Taylor. They don't really have an experienced option to send the Bengals' way, so Cincinnati would have to replace Burrow with another move. But right now, the Jets have pick 5. Does that help? You know, like, is it 5, a second, and a first next year, and then some guy? Like another one to maybe make some money work or something like that. Like, is there a move there that the Jets could have because of how high that draft pick could be? And if you want to just go quarterback, offensive lineman for Cincinnati at 5 and then wherever they're going to be picking, does that help kind of ease the Joe Burrow exit out there? And then again, for the Jets, kind of the same motivations as Miami, where you're playing against Drake May and Josh Allen a couple of times a year, having Joe Burrow instead of Tyrod Taylor or whoever the hell that Cook guy is. That might make some sense. Next up is the team that I root for, the Vegas Raiders. Again, pretty clearly no quarterback of the future there. Due respect to Kenny Pickett and whatever he was trying to do last week against the Eagles, and Geno Smith just falling off of a cliff this season. But there's nothing there. So again, unless they think Geno Smith, maybe with those guys, could be a bit of a reclamation project for Cincinnati, maybe. But there's an opportunity that the Raiders will have the number 1 overall pick. Would that be enough with another future or something to send the Bengals' way and try to get one of the best quarterbacks in the league out of Cincinnati? Again, the Raiders would be putting Burrow in it would be a worse spot for Joe Burrow, no question about it. But when you look at the roster in Vegas, and I don't think that would be a smart use of the number 1 overall pick for the Raiders, but they're the Raiders, and they're always involved in these types of conversations. And when you're looking at the draft this year and seeing the teams that are at the top and who would be motivated to make moves like this, not that the Titans wouldn't, I don't think the Titans would go, we can't trade for Joe Burrow, we have Cam Ward. But I feel like of the teams that are kind of up there, Vegas was maybe the most realistic. Now we're getting into the ones that because these ones, you can see them being interested, and they have a little bit more of the draft capital to maybe be able to do it. These next couple are the, oh my God, could you imagine teams? And we will start with the Minnesota Vikings. They gambled on J.J. McCarthy. It hasn't worked. It's not working. Quarterback, though, I still think this is a really good roster in Minnesota, and quarterback is kind of the only thing holding them back. Burrow would do the opposite of that, obviously. Does Cincinnati fancy themselves a J.J. McCarthy? All of a sudden, a bit of a cheaper option at quarterback. Cincinnati likes cheap. Do you get a McCarthy plus picks out the wazoo for Joe Burrow? And now the Vikings have a complete roster and have a team that can kind of dominate, or at least, I don't want to say dominate, but can be very competitive in a really good NFC North. And then the last one here, and this is a little pie in the sky, but follow me here. What about the Eagles? It's been an ugly season for Philadelphia. If that continues into the postseason, is there okay, we appreciate Jalen Hurts, everything you've done, awesome, great, love it. But if we want to consistently get back to where we were, we're going to need an upgrade. And what better upgrade is going to be out there than Joe Burrow? Or is it just like, look, Jalen, we wouldn't do this if it was almost anyone else, but it's that dude. So we're going to get that dude. And for the Bengals, bringing in a Super Bowl winning quarterback, like Hurts for Burrow, obviously with some draft picks then exchanged, but Hurts for Burrow. And then Jalen, you already have a good run game in Chase Brown, some very good receivers to throw those slants you really like to. It doesn't, in terms of the weapons he has, it doesn't downgrade all that much. Obviously, the offensive line problems are there. And I don't know if there, aside from what Saquon saw, I don't know if there is a bigger shift in quality of offensive line than going from the Bengals to the Eagles. But could Cincinnati talk themselves into that? And for Philadelphia, again, it's like, look, there's a championship level player that's available after a season that has been really disappointing, specifically on the offensive side. I know we won a Super Bowl with that guy, but we won it with him. We could win one because of Joe Burrow. And again, he's Joe Burrow. There's just that opportunity. So the most likely outcome is he probably doesn't get traded. But these are, if the Bengals are looking, I think these are the teams that have either the draft capital or the motivation to go out and get this deal done. And don't lie to me. That Eagles one got the brain ticking a little bit, didn't it? Because I, just going through the teams, I was like, okay, Raiders, yeah, Raiders win on everything always. The Jets, similar, New York, all that. Miami, they're going to need to make a switch. I put this together before the Ewers news, too. And then I got to the Eagles, and I was like, oh, shit. Oh, damn. Okay. Whew. So, yes, obviously, contracts in the NFL are weird, and there's this, that, and the other thing that complicate a lot of these. So, well, actually, that's not welcome. I understand. But I just think that there are, if this is going to happen, and given his comments after last week, I think there's a chance it could. I think these are the teams that have the best chance to pull off something like this. Let me know. What about your team? If I didn't list you, and odds are I didn't, if I didn't list your team here, let me know why you think your team would make a move for a Joe Burrow. Or if your team is on here and you think I'm insane, also let me know. And Bengals fans, I'm just sorry. And that's coming from a Raider fan. So let me know what you think in the comment section down below. If you can't get enough of this show, well, bring it with you. Just search Couch Potato Diary in Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. When we're rolling, it is multiple times a week, sometimes multiple times a day. So make sure you go find us and just nice and easy. Downloads right on your phone, and we can hang out together listening-wise that way. Again, trying to grow all those. So if you already are a subscriber or follower, thank you. Leave a review while you're there. It helps grow the show immensely. So, all right. So that was the conversation there on Joe Burrow that I had with myself the other day. Toxic in the YouTube chat. Bengals losing any trade that involves Burrow. That's fair, right? Like that is what we've seen it. I talked about it with the Quinn Hughes trade also. It's tough to really make 4 quarters equal $1 when it comes to a player like that, and then what it means to lose a guy in that locker room and to that fan base also. So you're absolutely right, toxic, but it feels like maybe it's a little bit out of their hands at this particular time. Want to play one more from also from that game again, the Miami one. Talked about the Tua Tagovailoa situation out in Miami and how complicated that has been. So going to again play that, and I'm hanging around. We can talk about things in the chat, and this one's about 5 minutes, and we'll get back to the live sports talk after this one here from Tua on the Tua situation that I recorded on Wednesday. The Miami Dolphins are making a change at quarterback, and this really does spell the end of an era, it feels like anyway, with the Dolphins. Tua is out. Ewers is in. Let's discuss a maybe not the most impactful move, but still an interesting one out in Miami. So the Miami Dolphins are making a change at quarterback as Tua Tagovailoa is out of there. They are making the switch, and in comes Quinn Ewers. And I don't know why I froze there, but all right, we'll be fine. We'll be okay. So anyway, again, even when I'm pre-recording, we're having some technical issues today, but hopefully it was all okay on your end. So this is obviously it's a decision that I think a few people wondered if it might be coming for a really long time. And now it is finally here. There was a discussion about, or I guess I've had some thoughts anyway, about what the Miami Dolphins could do at quarterback. Now, Tua would be expensive to get rid of, but it does kind of feel like it's time to move on in Miami. I've said for a couple of years now, the play calling, they are calling plays as if they are scared of their quarterback. And Tua, it's so unfortunate what has happened with this guy, because he had all the talent in the world. It was tank for Tua in his draft year. And then he maybe wasn't as productive in the last season of Alabama as he would have wanted to be. And Miami was at the center of tank for Tua. They end up actually doing better than people thought. And Brian Flores, it's a whole thing about it. But they still end up getting Tua. And the first couple of years with McDaniels, and then they bring in Tyreek Hill, and you have this explosive offense, it looked fun. It looked really fun, especially at home. On the road, not great. Cold weather sucked. But there was a real fun and a real, oh man, this is a dangerous, elite offense happening here. And it seemed like it was tough to defend. But there was always this little thing where you would see Tyreek just gone down the left side, and Tua throws it to him, and Tyreek has to stop, turn around, catch it, and then he'd make a good play, and it'd be a big play. And it's like, it's very difficult to critique a 65-yard passing play, but better throw, and that's a touchdown. It was always, okay, that was good. Great would have been better, though, And so it was a little difficult to critique, but there was always a little bit of this may not be a thing as much as it looks like it's a thing. And then the concussions start to come up. And it is a tragic tale there because of how scary those have looked. And there is, I would assume, quite a bit of level of physical, obviously, but emotional trauma that comes with a situation like that. So you just hope that he can get it back on track and find it there. But for the Dolphins, I think it's pretty clear it's not going to happen in Miami. So this makes sense to make this move. They are basically done. They are done in playoff contention. You have an easy matchup this week with the Cincinnati Bengals. So Ewers, it's still an NFL team, right? Like it's not, you don't get to go out there and play the high school down the street. But Ewers now has an opportunity against one of the worst defenses the NFL has seen in a really long time to see what they have in this kid and see what he can do, get his feet wet, and maybe you notice something over the last 3 weeks, and maybe you found the next Brock Purdy in the 7th round. But I would suggest Miami is going to look to make a move at the quarterback spot this upcoming offseason, and this just really drives home that fact. And McDaniels, maybe this saves his job, maybe it doesn't. It's been a very unfortunate last little run here for Tua Tagovailoa, and now it does kind of feel like it's officially come to the end in Miami. What do you guys think? Am I being too am I being too kind to Tua, talking about how it's been unfortunate, how much is on him? And what do you make of this move? It's a pretty again, like it seemed like it kind of came out of nowhere ish. After they've had a pretty good run, like they did win a few games in a row to get back into contention in air quotes here, but like they beat the Bills, that's a good win. Beat the Commanders, the Saints, and the Jets, those are and then a loss to the Steelers kind of ends it for them. But like they did go on a pretty good run. So were you surprised by this move, or was it the right time for Tua? Let me know in the comments, and we can chat about it down there. Normally, we try to do these live. Wasn't able to do it today, but follow me on a few different places where we like to go live with Couch Potato Diary and maybe some video game playing too along the way. Would love to. Jokes. We are doing this live. So again, that was pre-recorded from Wednesday. Sorry, big swig of water right before we came back. We have another chat here from YouTube. Daddy Deadpool asking, am I starting London this week? I think you are. If he is healthy and he is good to go, like if he is active, then I think we have to play Drake London this week. I understand that he might be limited or a bit of a pitch count situation or even a decoy or something along those lines. But I think in this situation, fantasy playoffs, that offense is kind of rolling. It's not an awesome defense for Arizona. So I think you do have to trust that Drake London is going to be able to get the job done. And I would have a tough time going into the fantasy semifinals, having Drake London have a big game and having it be on my bench. I would rather him have a dud in my lineup than him have a big game on my bench. So yeah, Daddy Deadpool, we are absolutely rocking with Drake London this week. So, keep the fantasy football questions coming. We are going to pivot away from football talk, but once the whatever kind of segment I'm doing is done, if I see that you've chatted about football in the chat, we'll pivot and we'll get right back into that football talk. So, yeah, keep the fantasy football questions coming. And if you want more of this, and have it be maybe bit more convenient for you, you can check us out in podcast form. Just search Couch Potato Diary on Spotify, on Apple Podcast, or wherever you get your podcasts. Time to move away from the football chat now, and let's go into some baseball. It has been an offseason where things are picking up a little bit and starting to gain some steam. When we had Toxic earlier on Twitch, now he's in the YouTube chat as well. Excuse me. Talking about where the Tampa Bay Rays are moving out Blue Jays killer Brandon Lau out of the division. That trade going down today, a 3-team deal. Also a trade with Tampa Bay and the Baltimore Orioles. Plus, some big names have signed in some big spots. So let's take a look at what the baseball offseason has given us so far and break down some of these moves. All right. Baseball's free agent period well underway. And again, Toxic mentioning in the chat that we had a trade earlier today. Brandon Lau on his way to the Pittsburgh Pirates. It was a 3-team deal involving the Rays and Pirates, obviously the Houston Astros getting involved in this one also. So I do think that, again, I'm not going to pretend to know every one of the pieces in this one. I think the big one is Brandon Lau. It's just good that the Pirates are getting involved in moves like this. We've heard that they're going to be a little bit more active, getting some revenue sharing stuff. So teams are probably like, hey, or the PA, I guess, more specifically, like, hey, can we pick this up a little bit, please? So they're getting involved. They needed a second baseman. They get a pretty good one. Tampa Bay got a haul in the Shane Baz deal as well with the Baltimore Orioles. So they're kind of retooling here after what has been a bit of an uncharacteristic couple-year stretch outside of relevancy in what is an increasingly competitive American League East. But Lau going to the Pirates, we'll see if they can get kind of their big name, that big deal to rocket them up a little bit with Skeens already in that starting rotation. maybe they could be competitive because I don't know how strong the Central is going to be in this upcoming season. The one that's really interesting is Shane Baz going to the Baltimore Orioles. A few prospects going the other way from Baltimore to Tampa Bay. Baz has he has stuff that can be very frustrating for hitters. And for Baltimore, we'll talk about them in a second here. That they bring in Pete Alonso. They made the trade earlier, bringing in Taylor Ward. They have solidified one of the best offenses in baseball right now. The pitching staff needed some work. Baz, if he is right, if he is healthy, if everything is going, this is a very, very talented pitcher that the Baltimore Orioles have just brought in. It is just a matter of, can you get that out of him on a consistent basis, and can he stay healthy during that time? If he can, then this is a strong, strong move for Baltimore, and one that they absolutely had to make. Again, there is always the reputation of don't trade with the Rays because they have a fantastic idea of everyone's farm system, and they have a pretty good idea of when their guys are about to fall off. So we will see what comes from that. But I think it's the type of move that the Orioles should be making right now, given how good that offense could be, even with some down years from Adley Rutschman, Gunnar Henderson maybe not getting to some of the levels, Holiday maybe not being as pro ready as or MLB ready as some people thought. At its peak, this is the best lineup in baseball. So they need to go kind of, maybe not all in, but they need to make some big moves to go out and acquire some starting pitching. And they did just that. Going to look at some of the other bigger moves from the offseason. May as well start with the Orioles and Pete Alonso. Again, it makes this such a dangerous lineup. And I think last year we maybe overrated how good this lineup could be, given the talent that was there. I think that there was a lot of relying on best case scenario and just what we always think of young prospects, where it's just arrow up the whole way. There is going to be some downtime for some of these guys. We saw that last year with the Orioles, but now with some protection there with Pete Alonso in the lineup, Ward, a very consistent offensive piece as well, or at least quite the threat as an offensive piece as well. It's a dangerous lineup. It is probably a longer contract than I'd want to go, and it's probably a little bit more money than I would want to do, but people have been saying that about the Blue Jays deals, and I've said it's only money because it's baseball and there's no salary cap, so I would then be a hypocrite to go and criticize the Orioles for this. If it were me, I would have put more of that money into starting pitching, and they still could, who knows, but they have traditionally been a little bit on the cheaper side, pitching-wise, and then they weren't, and then the guy got hurt. But I am surprised that they went with this move over getting pitching first, but still a lot of offseason to go. The Philadelphia Phillies have certainly bolstered their lineup as they keep Kyle Schwarber in the fold and also add Adolis Garcia on free agency as well. With Schwarber, you kind of had to do it. This is, obviously, it's an aging group, but Schwarber was probably the best just pure power hitter out on the market. And if you lose him, like, you're already trying to get better because we are assuming again that the Atlanta Braves are going to be a factor in this in this National League East situation, and the Mets are always just kind of lurking, and the Phillies don't just want to stack up with the National League East. They have World Series aspirations, and so they have to improve to catch the Dodgers. It doesn't help if you have to start way further back than you were if Schwarber leaves for Boston or somewhere else. So they had to do this. Garcia, it's a fun power bat added to that lineup and really just kind of locking in on let's just hit some dingers and see what happens. I do wonder where better is coming from with this team. Like, Garcia can be a bit of a boost, but I don't know if it's one where it's like, okay, well, now they can beat the Dodgers. I think they need a little bit more on the pitching side. They had a good rotation last year, but a couple of pieces kind of aging and falling off a little bit. I think if you were looking for where does the better come with this team, it is adding to that rotation and trying to get through that way. But a full year of Duran maybe helps in the bullpen. We'll see. But the Phillies are a team that I think is going to have to get a little creative to try to get over the hump here of the Dodgers, and now with the Braves providing a bit of resistance in the NL East as well. one player leaving the NL East is Edwin Diaz, as he goes to the LA Dodgers. Makes all the sense in the world for them, right? Like when we were watching the Blue Jays against them in the World Series, it was, hey, can you get to the bullpen? And the Dodgers needed a 24-year-old in his first year in North America to close out games, and then Yamamoto on 25 minutes rest after throwing 95 pitches to close out the World Series. So adding the best closer available makes all the sense in the world. He was the one in the bullpen. I've liked the Blue Jays moves so far. He was the one of the big name relievers, that I wanted the Blue Jays to actually go out and try to invest in, but it is a bigger contract than I wanted. Dodgers can do that because they're the Dodgers, and there are other teams that should be doing that, absolutely, but it's still bigger than I would have gone on a relief pitcher, and so you can understand why Toronto maybe wanted to go with the more value route of Rogers. Not that that was a cheap contract or anything, but that's kind of where that they wanted to get to there. So I think it's a smart move. I do wonder, he strikes me as someone where that cliff could come soon. And it falls off very, very quickly. So that was always a bit of a concern of mine with the Blue Jays. Would I be saying these same things if he signed with Toronto? Maybe not, just to be perfectly honest with you. But there would have probably been a little bit of me that's like, man, I love it. Happy he's here. Worried about this a bit. But the Dodgers are a year in, year out. Let's just try to win the World Series team. 100%. Toxic in the chat. Yamamoto still gives me nightmares. Oh, dude. Like, that was terrifying. Just seeing him warming up. Like, we're a few months away, obviously, from the start of baseball season, but I'm already considering just throwing that guy in my top 10 players of the league list, just because of how dominant he was there and how he was able to do what he did. That is legendary stuff that we are talking about. So yes, as a Blue Jays fan, still some nightmares there. 100%. We're sticking around in the NL East as Suarez goes to the Braves. I love this for them. I think they have a really well-structured team and a very well put together kind of balance sheet. They've signed some very good contracts. The Acuna injury situations have been really frustrating, and the injury issues in Atlanta finally caught up to them this year. I think this is a dangerous team again, and adding Suarez to that rotation is a very smart addition from Alex Anthopoulos. They've made a couple of other moves as well. I still talked about it the other day. I still view them as a real threat in the Bo Bichette business. I think that they could, even with the signings they've made, I think they could still bring Bo in and get a little bit creative and figure it out. The Braves are going to be for real this year, I think, in the National League East. Again, health pending. And one of the teams that I'm surprised we haven't talked about a lot, the New York Mets, they make the move, and it is Jorge Polanco coming in. I like the bat, a really good bounce back year. I thought he was kind of locked in to stay with the Mariners, so a little surprised that he goes to the New York Mets. Apparently that's the plan for first base right now. We'll see what happens as the offseason goes on, but he's played like one inning there ever. I don't love this one. And again, it's weird breaking down baseball contracts because the money doesn't really matter, and especially for the Mets. When you have a billionaire owner of your team, like, what are we gonna, oh no, this has been overspending here. Like, that's whatever. Money is money in baseball. But Polanco is the kind of value bat that you add after the rest of the dominoes have fallen, but they got ahead of it and still didn't get any of the value on that. Like, I feel like with this contract, and it's with most, right? It's free agency, that's what happens. But you are so banking on best case scenario with this guy to make that work out. It just, the way the Mets have gone about this offseason has been very, very confusing to me. And so that is why, again, I still view them as, we'll talk about my predictions in the offseason here in a sec. They're a Kyle Tucker threat, 100% they are. It's the only way this offseason makes sense, really. They signed Luke Weaver and Devin Williams as well, because they watched the playoffs and thought, yeah, Yankee bullpen is what we need to go with. Like, Mets fans are furious, and you can absolutely understand why at this point. I think it's been a brutal offseason for them. Could change with one big move, but I think it's been pretty brutal so far. Toxic in the chat, just can't wait for you, Savage and Rogers coming in after. Dude, it's going to be so fun to watch that whole thing play out. Like Rogers, that arm angle is going to be weird on anyone. Like Gosman, Barrios, whoever pitches, having to deal with that arm angle is weird. But having that follow, like you go from one of the highest release points in the league to Rogers, who I said this in the video, the only way you can get a lower release point with Rogers is if he literally tunnels under the mound. So I think it's very creative. I think the Blue Jays are going to have a lot of fun with that, and he provides a lot of value when it comes to eating up some innings in that bullpen as well. Like he can do kind of the Louis Varland thing as well if you want Varland now in some higher leverage situations. So yes, that is a note for Blue Jays fans. This is the other MLB reactions. I'm the by the time you see this, Tyler Rogers, if you're watching it after, the Tyler Rogers video will be up. I've reacted to all the Blue Jays free agent signings so far. So if you want some Blue Jays stuff, that is available. Just look for the Blue Jays playlist that I have. I call it the Catalanato cast on here, or just look in the channel. There's a few Blue Jays videos in here as well. So those are the moves that have been made. What about the moves to come? Yes, we have just been the ghost of Christmas past, and I guess present. Let's look as the ghost of Christmas future. Who are the big free agents going to sign with? I have 10 of the biggest names that are left in free agency. Let's give our picks for where those guys will end up. So, the baseball free agent period, well underway. We've had some big names go, but some big names still on the board. So I'm going to go through the 10 biggest names that I think are left in free agency and give my picks for them. At number 10, because there have been actually quite a few signed, I think Chris Bassitt makes the list. I would love for him to stick with the Blue Jays and for Toronto to try to find a way to keep him around. I don't know if that's going to be the case. I think he's going to want to get that starter money, and I think a team that could kind of use him is the Texas Rangers. They've had some injury issues at pitcher and could use someone to just eat up a bunch of innings for them. Bassitt can do that. He can do that effectively, and the Rangers are going to want to be competitive again here, I think. Making some big moves, obviously, so maybe they won't be, but they're going to need that starting pitching, and I think Bassitt fits what Texas is looking for quite well. Next, Eugenio Suarez. I have him going to the Red Sox, which probably tells you where I don't have Alex Bregman going. But Suarez, bit of a rough playoff, a couple of big hits, but certainly didn't have the big explosion off of an excellent regular season that he had. The Red Sox need a little bit more pop in that lineup. Suarez can provide that. So I have Eugenio Suarez coming into the American League East and signing with the Red Sox. Zach Gallen is my next one with the Astros. That's who I have him signing with. So again, tells you where I don't have Framber Valdez going. Gallen, I still think there's a there, maybe not to what it was before, but the Astros are going to need that front of the line guy. Can Gallen be just a straight line replacement for Valdez? Probably not, but I think he can still be effective enough in what is, again, going to be an Astro season of trying to retool and trying to catch up with the Seattle Mariners. So we'll see what direction they go, but I have Gallen going there. The next one is Munetaka Murakami, who is the big kind of pop hitter coming in from Japan. It felt like there was a lot of buzz about him, and then the story came out that he basically missed every pitch that went more than 90 miles an hour last season, and so I think there was a little bit of concern there. I wonder, given the Rendon of it all and everything, feels like the Angels might want to get back in that market and might need a little bit more pop in the lineup that they got rid of Ward, maybe looking for a bit of a spark there. So I have Murakami going to the Angels. They feel like the team that could kind of match some of the demands that prospect, or that player, would have. One of the names that everyone north of the border is excited about, interested about, stressing about, is Bo Bichette. And I have him going to the Toronto Blue Jays. I think Bo sticks with the Jays. That felt like a relationship that, like, him with the fan base, him with Vladdy and John Schneider as well, all of that felt like Bo this is Bo's team. He is obviously seeing how the market plays out, telling people he would move to second base. That doesn't take him away from the Blue Jays, by the way. Jimenez could move to short just as easily, and they could still do it that way. There's a lot of different possibilities here for Bo Bichette to stick around with the Blue Jays, and so my pick is him staying in Toronto. Tetsuya Imai is the next one. I had him going to the Blue Jays right up until the Ponce move. And maybe that doesn't take them out. Like maybe the Blue Jays are just stocking up on everything now. But the way he was talking about wanting to be competitive, wanting to go against the Dodgers and trying to beat them and all of that, maybe it's not like I'm going plucky underdog here, but I have him going to the Yankees. I think that Imai ends up with the Bronx Bombers. That they desperately need to make a move in that starting rotation. And we'll talk about the other ones in a second here. I don't see them making a whole lot of other big splashes right now. Maybe they do. Maybe I'm wrong. But this feels like still the one that could kind of get the fan base back into it a little bit and kind of get them rolling in the right direction because they really need to at this time. Alex Bregman is the next one on the list. I have him going to the Detroit Tigers. Detroit making that run to back into the postseason after getting a scare from Cleveland toward the end of the year. I know that there's all the Tarek Skubal discussions going on there. I still don't think that trade actually happens. And I think that this is a lineup that needs that big game changer in the middle of it. Bregman showed that he could be that at times with Boston last year. He has a relationship with AJ Hinch. It all just kind of lines up. So I see Bregman going to the Tigers. Cody Bellinger, next on the list. This is kind of playing what we saw from a little bit ago, from last time Bellinger was available and all of that. I have him going to the Blue Jays. It's a bit of an out there thing, but Toronto, I think they're going to make the big splash bringing in Bo. Not that Bellinger is going to be cheap or anything like that, but it is probably a step down dollar amount from the big name at the end of this list. And so I think that is kind of the combination that the Blue Jays go with. It still improves the outfield spot. Lucas and Schneider, a fine platoon in the playoffs last year for Toronto, but Bellinger, excellent defensively, a good lefty bat for the top part of that lineup for the Blue Jays, and I think would make it a very, very dangerous Blue Jays team. He just seems to fit it really well. Haven't seen the Blue Jays tied to them a lot, so maybe this is just being the homer here. I will absolutely admit that. If it's not the Blue Jays, I could totally see him just going back to the Yankees. But right now, I'm going to say Toronto. Framber Valdez, I am going to the Orioles. Baltimore needs pitching. They just spent going out and get Shane Baz for a few prospects. Valdez, I think that incident with the catcher has really hurt the market on Valdez. There was some talk about the Blue Jays maybe kicking the tires on that. I just feel like when you are a team that everyone is talking about winning a world or going to the Game 7 of the World Series based on the power of friendship, you can't bring in a dude who then threw at his catcher. So that is obviously an issue. And so maybe the Orioles don't want to bring that into a young clubhouse and have Adley Rutschman have to deal with that. But they need starting pitching, and he is the best that's available. So I think Valdez to the Orioles makes the sense. And then the last one, Kyle Tucker. Basically every sign is him to the Blue Jays right now. But like I said before, I think they keep Bo around, and it just prices them out a little bit of the Kyle Tucker market. All the moves the Mets have made point to this. The offseason hasn't been very good. It has been surprisingly a little on the cheaper side with some of the moves that they have made, some of the players that they have let go. With Nimmo leaving, bringing in Simeon, at second base, it leaves an obvious hole in the outfield. And I think it makes all the sense in the world that they just go out and overpay and bring in Kyle Tucker. It also, like, the Met fan is pissed right now at how things have gone down. So I think that you have to kind of correct that. I think that Steve Cohen and Mets ownership is aware of the Met fan reaction to everything. And so I think there is going to be a real push to make that move. So Kyle Tucker to the Mets is my prediction there. I can't imagine. I just went 10 for 10 on what you guys are thinking in terms of who goes where in baseball free agency. So let me know in either the chat here or in the comments what you think I got right and what you think I got wrong. I know that the description says there's a couple other things coming, but we are going to have to call it here. The room is needed for something else. So that's going to do it for the stream. Thank you guys so much for hanging out today. Looks like we kind of held up pretty well. So all things are going okay at this particular time, at least on the YouTube side. Apparently Twitch had some issues, so apologies for that. I'm off to Saskatchewan after this day, going there tomorrow. Small town. Maybe a little unreliable internet going on there. So I'm going to see what it's like. We're probably going to do a test run of it one of the days there. Obviously, we're not doing anything Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, probably not even Boxing Day. But the couple of days leading up to it, going to try and see. But either way, there's going to be a bunch more content coming out from Couch Potato Diary. So if you're listening, make sure you hit that follow or subscribe. Leave a review. That stuff really, really does help the show out. Again, you can get it on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your pods. If you are watching live, hit that notification bell. Hit the like button as well. If you've hung around for this long, you probably liked it. This would be a really long time to hate watch shit. So thank you guys so much for all the support and everything like that. Means the world to me. Hopefully we'll be able to chat live before then, but if I don't get to talk to you guys, have a very safe, very happy holidays. Again, thank you. It's been a treat to be able to chat with you guys live here as the year has gone on. So enjoy the holiday season, and hopefully we will chat again very soon here on Couch Potato Diary.